On a cold, bleak winter's night in 2030, I walk among the skyscrapers of Manhattan, the heart of New York, under the faint glow of dimly flickering gas lamps. I am Dr. Ethan Vance, an archaeologist and scientist. For many years, I've made it my mission to unravel the secrets of the past, to illuminate the legends hidden behind the dusty remnants of the ancient world. But tonight I was igniting the first spark of events that would bring forth a legend of the past. The tale of an ancient underground monster and a curse that would bring humanity to the brink of extinction. New York, the cosmopolitan city of the modern world. In this city, where many people of foreign origin with different beliefs and cultures live together, I too had found my place by a twist of fate. My latest research had provided extraordinary clues that the monster known as Styx in ancient Greek mythology was beginning to awaken from its deep slumber beneath the earth, triggered by global warming and rising heat waves. This creature, dormant for centuries in hallowed lands, was now reawakening due to natural causes. Lost in my thoughts, I reached the latest results of the archaeological excavations we were conducting in international collaborations. In the course of these studies, I had seen the connections between the details in the dusty texts of ancient legends and the catastrophe of today. But no preparation would be enough to prevent this disaster. It all began with the examination of ancient tablets recovered from an underground excavation in Manhattan. A few weeks ago, during an excavation we conducted at New York University with a multinational team, fragments of forgotten Greek mythological texts were accidentally found. As an American, along with Dr. Lucia Bianchi, a historian from Italy, and Dr. Kenjiro Sato, an environmental scientist from Japan, we had spent all our energy deciphering the symbols on these tablets. The creature depicted on the tablets was named Styx. According to legend, Styx was an ancient entity chosen from among the gods, capable of emerging from the depths of the underworld to bring about the end of humanity. However, how and when this prophecy would come to pass was not limited to the traces of the past, but also aligned with the realities of modern times. At the beginning of our thesis work, we had noticed unusual geological signs around the area where the tablets were found. Melting glaciers, a consequence of global warming, had created cracks in the Earth's crust, waking ancient formations and long dormant beings in the depths. The underground tunnels of Manhattan, in particular, would serve as a conduit for the awakening of this legendary monster. My initial feelings were a mix of fear and curiosity, oscillating between reality and legend. In my first interviews in the city, an American journalist named Lindsay had told stories about increasing strange earthquakes and a swampy sensation in the city, which began to resonate in my mind. Yet what was truly unsettling was how the meticulously collected data from the excavation site aligned with nature's unknown reactions, and how this paralleled the awakening of the ancient legend. Late at night, amidst the shadows of New York, I began to feel an uneasiness that mirrored the silent awakening of the monsters slumbering underground. For many, this was merely a psychological reflection of the modern world. However, I had a gut feeling that an ancient danger far beyond what was happening had reawakened. While scientific data warned us, the signs we gleaned from the ancient symbols indicated that Styx was about to surface again. During our initial breakthroughs, natural phenomena emerging at the excavation site yielded shocking results. Columns of heat, rising from the depths of the earth toward the horizon, created a sense of a time tunnel extending from ancient times to the present. One particular night, while our team member, Lucia, was recording the continuous hums from beneath the soil at the excavation site, we felt as if the door to a very different world had opened. Kenjiro, meanwhile, meticulously examined this geological data, emphasizing these sudden changes in the Earth's crust due to the effects of global warming. At that moment, we all realized we were on the verge of a real horror scenario. With each passing day, in light of cultural and civilizational data, findings increasingly suggested that the awakening of the ancient monster was inevitable. In my heart, beyond the scientific data, lay the weight of the consequences that the reawakening of an ancient curse would bring. The streets of Manhattan were about to transform into a battlefield where past and future collided, where ancient myths intertwined with modern times. Waking with the first light of dawn and returning to my lab, all signals across the globe seemed to be harbingers of Styx's awakening. Statistics showed that global warming and rising temperatures were overturning the Earth's geological balance, manifesting as increased volcanic activity and underground earthquakes. In this metropolis on the east coast of America, everything seemed to herald the apocalypse of an ancient catastrophe. Earthquakes intensified day by day, dramatic shifts in underground water levels occurred, and powerful storms enveloped the streets of Manhattan, plunging the city's inhabitants into despair. In the subterranean tunnels beneath the city, deep hums and vibrations resonated like the footsteps of a living entity. I, Dr. Ethan Vance, believed that behind all these extraordinary events lay the reawakening of an ancient mythological creature, Styx. Late one deep night, during a weary team meeting at New York University, Kenjiro's grave warning echoed in our ears. There are signals, and they're not normal readings. It's as if a message is coming to us from the depths of the earth, he said. The anxiety on Dr. Lucia's face further intensified the weight of his words. These two, though from different nations, were working towards a common goal, investigating phenomena that could herald disaster for humanity. Mysterious notes, repeatedly told stories of ancient legends, bore the traces of myths filled with the wrath of subterranean beings. Seeing the symbols on the tablets align with modern geological data completely bewildered me. Global warming had disrupted the balance of nature, as if awakening Styx from its deep slumber underground. It was as if humanity, proving the impossibility of escaping the catastrophe it created, had fallen under the spell of the ancient myth. Wandering through the streets of Manhattan, ruined buildings, dilapidated parks, and collapsed infrastructure replaced the city's once magnificent and livable facade with a landscape shrouded in death. The dread felt with every step dragged humanity towards the darkest period of its history. Somewhere within me, I had anticipated that this fear was not merely a scientific anomaly, but the terrifying end that the intertwining of ancient powers with modern times would create. In response to the initial warnings, global leaders activated emergency plans, but it was inevitable to see that preparations were insufficient against the speed of events and nature's vengeance. Earthquakes and suddenly rising temperatures caused mass panic worldwide, while news spread by the media plunged people into despair. One evening, a colossal roar from underground tore through the silent streets of New York, sending people across the city scrambling for shelter in terror. At that moment, everywhere I looked, anomalous activity and chaos reigned, heralding the beginning of a life-or-death struggle. I was trying to understand the truth behind the chaotic forces unknown throughout history, to prevent this catastrophe. But every new piece of data revealed how devastating the impact of ancient supernatural powers was on humanity. As Lucia and Kenjiro's analyses increasingly proved that Styx, similar to its depiction in Greek mythology, was a colossal entity, not detached from the earth, but nourished in the darkness of its subterranean depths. Despair prevailed. Global warming had become a spark for this ancient creature's awakening, due to human activities that disrupted the natural balance. And that spark now fueled an irreversible catastrophe. As I delved deeper into the old tunnels beneath the city, I felt the anger and fury lying at the heart of the earth. With every step, the heat seeping from the cracks in the earth's crust was a harbinger of Styx's ascent. While I was preoccupied with theories lost among scientific slides, I felt as if the symbols on the ancient tablets were opening a door from within. This was the beginning of a dark journey that would determine humanity's fate. It didn't take long for us to realize that the hour of the apocalypse had struck. Manhattan was living its final moments, with dramatic tremors from underground and colossal shadows engulfing the city. I, Dr. Ethan Vance, stubbornly noted down every scene, the horror of the catastrophe unfolding before my eyes. What had begun as just a few bleak nights and strange geological anomalies quickly transformed into the darkest period in human history. Lucia's eyes, once hopeful, were now filled with a profound sorrow and despair. Kenjiro, pushing the limits of technology and science, was now resigned to the fact that they were too powerless to combat the ancient curse and the disaster humanity had brought upon itself. The global panic and chaos beyond the news reported by the media marked a new era of helplessness, coupled with the collapse of faith in people's hearts. Styx had now fully emerged onto the surface. The horrifying roars that followed an unnatural silence seemed to represent the darkest wrath of the world. This incredibly massive creature, in accordance with the dark myths of the ancient Greek gods, advanced with cold, ruthless, and unpredictable power. Its grim silhouette, clearly visible, disappeared amidst the flickering lights of Manhattan's skyscrapers, while the faces in the city were filled with a desperate, expressionless fear, having lost all hope. Under the impact of our powerlessness and unpreparedness, 80% of human history had been obliterated across the globe. Amidst this dreadful catastrophe, as a simple archaeologist, I witnessed the flow of history and once again understood how fragile and helpless humanity was. With every step, the natural disasters combined with Styx's might echoed like a symphony bringing about humanity's end. In the streets of Manhattan, among the ruined buildings, and behind the terrifying roars rising from underground, it felt as if the cold breath of death was palpable. I was filled with such immense sorrow and more pain than I could ever learn, unable even to hold my pen. Lucia's words, "All this is the price of the curse humankind has long kept hidden," constantly echoed in my mind. Kenjiro's observations, made while examining the data, this is not nature's attempt to reorder itself, but a reflection of a shield of vengeance, seemed to expose the deepest wounds of human pride. As days passed, Styx's destructive effects became even more pronounced. The streets of New York were submerged by massive waves rising from underground, and the remnants left amid smoke and ashes left an unforgettable mark on the stage of modern world history. Humanity, at the peak of nature's wrath, suffered the agony of the disaster it had mercilessly created. Although I tried to explain this catastrophe with my scientific observations, the fear in my heart caused ancient legends and curses to reanimate. Styx was not merely a symbol of physical destruction, but a punishment, a vengeance for humanity's greed and indifference to nature. The dark legend of the past merged with the cruel reality of the modern world, triggering a brand new apocalypse. With each passing hour, as death tolls rose, cities crumbled, and international crises deepened, humanity truly faced itself. Unfortunately, even scientists like me couldn't prevent this supernatural retribution. With the early warning signs we were unprepared for. When Lucia and Kenjiro and I met for the last time, there was no glimmer of hope, no salvation. It seemed inevitable that an ancient wrath, intent on destroying humanity in every corner of the modern world, had come. Finally, on a cold midnight, I remember standing before Styx's mighty silhouette in the now deserted and deadly silent streets of Manhattan. In the darkness of the night, at that moment when no one lived, when the darkest page of human history was written, my heart held indescribable sorrow and helplessness. At that moment, all my hope, scientific excitement, and curiosity for ancient legends gave way to only one harsh truth. Humanity was crushed in the grip of the forces that brought its own destruction. This ancient vengeance, defying style and time, ultimately annihilated 80% of humanity through natural disasters triggered by global warming. In the streets of New York, among the ruined buildings, and at that time when no hope for life remained, I, Dr. Ethan Vance, will only write, and these will remain as words mixed with death, memories of this dark era that will never be lived again. The rise of Styx, as the most terrifying curse in human history, showed the impossibility of learning from the mistakes of the past. This terrifying journey, every scientific analysis I embraced, every archaeological excavation, and every ancient legend from behind its veil was a tale of vengeance. Perhaps the future of humanity is merely the outcome of a reckoning made up of mistakes throughout history. In the pit we dug ourselves, we became prisoners of our own curse. And now, in the silence, amidst shattered hopes and lost lives, I too am compelled by history. At the end of the story, all that remains are painful memories, ruined cities, and natural disasters reborn with the wrath of ancient myths. I have left it hanging in the sky as a curse that perhaps should not be told to future generations. How a monster dormant for centuries brought an end to humanity. Now, as I write these lines, I feel Styx's shadow still hovering over me, and that ancient wrath, torn from ancient Greek legends, completing the tragedy of the modern world. Perhaps the last era brought to humanity by an ancient monster is not about to end us, but rather to become an immortal memory of fear and despair, covering the dark bonds of the human spirit. At midnight, like a whisper among the ruins of Manhattan, Styx's last breath is heard. The curse of the past transforms into the tragedy of today, and I, an archaeologist who once worked to illuminate the secrets of history, now remain a shadow lost in the lines of history writing the end of humanity. The city's final moments were not just a tragedy, but also the cruel face of human history. As I recount this journey, those last moments we shared with Lucia and Kenjiro served as a warning to humanity. Lucia, with eyes that had left everything behind, said, "Tonight we saw nature's vengeance on our faces," while Kenjiro added, "No matter how advanced science becomes, we cannot suppress nature's wrath." At that moment, they realized once again that the ancient monster Styx was a symbol of nature's fury. This tragedy was an apocalyptic scenario where ancient legends met modern times. Global warming, along with humanity's self-inflicted imbalance, awakened ancient wrath, signifying the rebirth of the unbreakable power of old myths. Styx, rising from beneath Manhattan, served as the ultimate vengeance, reminding us of the broken balance between nature and humanity. I, Dr. Ethan Vance, as I write these lines, am recording not only the sorrowful echoes of the past, but also an existential warning for the future. Humanity was simply left to die amidst the catastrophe triggered by global warming, paying the price for its own mistakes. With every step, this apocalypse, intertwining the traces of the past's curse with the agony of ancient legends, revealed the fragility of the human spirit. For us, who remain among the ashes, the deep imprints of history perhaps remain as a harbinger of future rebirth. But as I write the story of this final era's destruction, I wanted to make this tragedy, woven with humanity's disappointments and the agony of betraying nature, unforgettable. The only things left were our hopes lost on Styx's white, cold side, and our lives extinguished forever. Perhaps this will be etched in humanity's memory as a bitter lesson, never to be forgotten throughout history. The reawakening of an ancient monster in the heart of the modern world was a sign of how fragile all civilizations on Earth are. And I hope that telling this tragedy will remain a warning for the future. This is the re-rise of Styx, the modern tragedy of ancient wrath, and a bitter deadlock that wrote the end of humanity. The awakening of the underground monster as not just a myth, but the darkest truth of the modern world would be etched into memory as a curse to be told for centuries. This story is not just an end. It is also a bitter echo of the endless conflict between past and future, science and legend, human greed and nature. And I, as an archaeologist who once pursued these secrets, chose to write this final epilogue under the weight of all lost hopes, destruction, and forgotten lives consumed by darkness. The streets of New York, left in shadows, will be eternally remembered as silent witnesses to this tragedy. Styx's cold breath, symbolizing the hopeless end of the modern world, would recall the wrath of ancient myths, the fate of nature, and the extinction of humanity. Thus I, Dr. Ethan Vance, as I pen the final lines of this dark tale, witnessed humanity's forgotten fall in the stream of time. And now, at the end of all that has happened, as a scientist, I have gathered the traces of ancient legends, modern horror, and humanity's despair. I have etched Styx's awakening into history as a catastrophe that left deep wounds on human history. We must accept the bitter truth. Humanity, in this tragedy it wrote with nature, brought about its own end and was crushed by 80%, fading into history. On this dark and silent night, amidst the roars of Styx rising from the ruined streets of New York, I have eternalized the lost memories of history, the despairing recollections, and nature's vengeance. And this writing will continue to be a warning for the future, a dark echo of the past.